circle and it's circle, circle, circle.
Hi, everybody. Barry McGuire here for Barry McGuire's Creative Real Estate Education Group. That's you guys. You're the group. It's the Monday main event. We meet up every Monday and talk about real estate, generally creative real estate, the ups and downs of it, what's going on with it. We like to have folks on to help us out. We have had insurance brokers and lenders. Garth Chapman has been on a couple of times telling us about the new CMHC program, and that's good. We might get Garth back on for some further updating. People in the development game, how do you get raw lots to the stage where you can build on or take a lot and split it? Things related to development, all kinds of experts to tell us about things that we run into in our real estate business portfolio. So, but today it's me. I am the expert.
Yay.
Today. Thank you, Donna. Donna's back from Mexico. She's in the producer's chair today. Coming up, just by way of updating people and reminding you, we do have our very first all-day wholesaling event. That's in Calgary on March 18th at the Clique Hotel. It's we love the Clique Hotel. They treat us very well there. They've got a great kitchen, so when they serve up a full breakfast and a full lunch, plus 2 great coffee breaks, it's not just stale donuts. It's really great food. I don't know why that's so important to me at a live event, but it is. It's important to me. I hope it's important to you too. People really seem to like that. And of course, it is, as I say, a live event. Nothing like getting together with people and doing a lot of networking. If you're having, a full breakfast and a full lunch, guess what? You're sitting at the table with people that you're in the event with all day long. And so we're looking forward to that. We're going to have a chance to explore wholesaling in more detail. There's going to be a lot more on the examples side of things and the panels side of things where we dig into issues that experienced creative real estate investors have come across and how they've solved things. So it's not just going to be the bare, dry legal side of it. It's going to be lots of practicality to the whole thing, including our always present 7 steps that we go through when we have any of our focus workshops. So that's what that is. It's a focus workshop. So that's March 18th in Calgary at the Clique Hotel. And also very exciting is we are back in Toronto for the first time in 3+ years. We're going to do an all-day agreement for sale event, or AFS event, as we like to call it, in Toronto. So full day on AFS. And a really exciting thing about this is that I have been getting inquiries from, guess what? Ontario lawyers saying to me, Barry, people are emailing us about agreements for sale. We need to know more about this. And so I expect we're going to have a number of Ontario lawyers at the event on April 1st in Toronto. And folks, as you know from hearing me talk, having a lawyer who understands what an AFS is key to success. You cannot have one lawyer who has no clue what it is, because you know what they say, a confused mind says no, and a confused lawyer will tell his AFS seller, likely, don't do this deal. So we need lawyers who at least understand it so they can properly advise their clients. So that is coming up on April 1st in Toronto. So that's really exciting. Live events. Love it. Love doing them. But today we are doing another in a series of, Donna?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Tales from the Trenches. Real life stories about investors and what they've done in their real estate investing career and the mistakes they made and what that means and how you get yourself out of them, how you could not get those same mistakes happening to you if you run into the same situation. So it's Tales from the Trenches today. All right, so let's get started. First off, my nose is extremely itchy. Oh my God. All right, that's better. All right, first up, we have a wholesaling tale, and That's appropriate because, of course, wholesaling is coming up on March the 18th. In this particular situation, our clients had found a property that they thought was really undervalued. It was going to be really undervalued, and the seller was an immigrant who had come on hard times, and he actually was going to move back to his home country, and so he wanted to sell his property, and he'd managed to get a CMHC insured mortgage on his property. Values had dropped, and so the value of the property was pretty close to what the mortgage was. Now, the wholesaler in this case, the assignor, was the person who had discovered this potential property. Our client is the assignee, the ultimate buyer. The assignor purported to understand what an agreement for sale was, said he knew what that was, and told our assignee clients that he was going to get the property under contract to purchase by way of an agreement for sale. And then that agreement for sale contract would be assigned, wholesaled, to our ultimate buyer client. So that was the story. And I came in about halfway through it. And the first thing I said to my clients is, okay, well, where is the contract? Where is the contract? Because in order for there to be something to be assigned, you need a contract. You need a contract. And there wasn't one. Hey, Dean.
I brought you.
Hey, Barry. How are you?
Good, Dean. I'm just trundling along here doing Tales from the Trenches.
I love Tales from the Trenches. I actually missed that when Rain stopped doing that.
Me too. I really enjoyed doing those. They're fun to do. And, people see me over the years and that's what they say. I love those Tales from the Trenches. That's the only thing they remember about me that I did, but that's fine. You got to be remembered for something. So we do them now here on the Monday Main Event every once in a while. And right now we're doing a tale on wholesaling where my ultimate buyer client was really sold a bill of goods by the wholesaler who was supposed to have put together an AFS contract. Well, an AFS contract with a financing schedule, and that's what would be assigned. And they came to see me about halfway through, and I said to them, okay, well, that's fine. Let's have a look at that contract and financing schedule that they are proposing to assign to you. And they went, well, that's the thing. We don't quite have that contract yet. So I said, so I'm doing this with my head, right? I'm not saying anything because I'm trying to figure out what to say to them. I said, okay, well, if there isn't a contract, then there's nothing to assign. So you better go back and talk to your wholesaler and see what's going on. So they went back and they talked to the wholesaler, and my clients were a bit new at doing this, so they didn't really quite grasp how all the pieces fit together, or how to really ask the questions. And of course, it was made a little more difficult because it wasn't a straightforward purchase contract to be assigned. It's an agreement for sale contract to be assigned. So after much toing and froing and upping and downing and backing and forthing, it turns out that the wholesaler did not have a contract with the owner. He didn't have a regular purchase contract. He didn't have a wholesaling an agreement for sale contract. And they ignored another rule that we've come across and made sure to implement, because if we don't, it's always to our dismay. And that is that the seller's lawyer did not have a lawyer who had any clue about any creative real estate. No clue. The wholesaler had a lawyer who was trying hard, and he was cooperative, and he was kind of okay. Didn't have any objection to that. But the seller's lawyer, every time we sent something out, because in the end kind of had to skip the wholesaler in the middle and try and talk directly to the seller's lawyer because it wasn't going anywhere.
Right.
But when the smoke cleared after a month at least of back and forth, it turned out there was no contract between the wholesaler and the seller. And the seller had finally had enough of just not understanding what's going on. And Lord knows we tried. It's really hard to say to a lawyer who doesn't know what's going on, you don't know what's going on. We tried. We said, these don't come up very often. They can be a little bit tricky. Might be worthwhile if you worked with a lawyer who's done a few more of these. What could be the harm? And we escalated that a little bit, going, please get this on another lawyer's desk. Wouldn't do it. No contract. Deal collapsed. And so, Dean, you've been around lawyers for a while. What happens when deals go sideways and lawyers put in a whole whack of time?
Somebody's getting the bill.
Big bill. Big bill. It was a big bill, and we try as hard as we can when we identify things that are going sideways to say, this is not in the right track. It's not the right track. Unless these things happen, then you're already at a couple of $1,000s worth of a bill. It could be way higher than that. And there's always some reason for hope in these things. And so our clients worked really hard on this. They're entrepreneurial guys. They're working really hard. They were doing their best. They were taking coaching. They were pushing it along as well as they could. But in the end, it did not work out. So whenever we do Tales from the Trenches, we always say, what lessons did we learn out of this? I think one of the lessons is that if you are the assignee, the person looking to buy the contract and close on the deal, there has to be a contract on which you're going to close. So you gotta, what would you have done in that situation, Dean? If you were my guy and this kind of showed up, how would you have handled that?
I think you handled it the same way I would have. You have to be somewhat diplomatic. I've certainly dealt with, real estate professionals that don't actually, know certain things and won't admit it. So, if they, as I've had one of my AFS deals get blown up by the seller's lawyer, one of my first ones. And so there's really not much you can do, right? Like they'll get to a certain point.
Yeah. It's not going any further.
You can do, right?
There's nothing else you can do. And I think what I said to my guys was, if you ever run into a similar situation like this, that the essence of wholesaling is that there is an existing contract to be assigned. And if you're the person who's going to close on the contract, you have to get that contract in your hands and you have to be able to examine it and see whether or not you want to actually take over this contract, or is it a piece of poop that you would never want to take over? So really a big lesson learned. A couple of big lessons there is, as we've found out, and you found out, the seller's lawyer has to have a lawyer who understands the strategy, particularly on the AFS side, but on the wholesaling side as well. Some lawyers are determined you can't do that. So, and then there has to be a contract to be assigned. So those are the two lessons learned out of that. My guys in the future said, we won't take one further step unless the contract's on the table to review. So that was an expensive exercise for them, but boy, they worked hard on it. I was proud of them for the effort they put in. It's part of your education, making those mistakes and learning those lessons, so that you do learn how things go. Excuse me, more water here. I didn't cough at all while you were in Mexico, done it?
Turkey.
She got home at midnight last night.
No, I didn't.
1 o'clock,
No.
1:30. Late. I mean, what do I know? I'm in bed. All right. So that's my first tale. But Dean, as we're talking about this, all of us, all we real estate professionals have tales from the trenches in our repertoire. So as I'm doing this, if you've got one you want to add to the mix, think about that. I'll do the next one, and then you can think about whether you got one to pop in.
Well, I could pop one in right now. I have one from 45 minutes ago. My daughter was just in the other room saying, "You were practically yelling at that guy." I'm like, because he's not getting it through his head. So I'll give you the background on it.
Okay.
This gentleman is older. He does not have a cell phone, and he does not have email. So he's got a home phone. That's it. And so that's fine. I can communicate with him that way. But he tried to sell his home via rent to own 5 years ago.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be a 1-year deal. You know how that goes, Barry. Year
I do.
2, oh, I still can't qualify. Year 3, still can't qualify. Now this guy's at the end of his rope. Okay, fair enough. So he wants me to list the property for him. Okay, I'm happy to do that for you. What we need to do, though, is we need some kind of a paper trail that you served this guy 90 days notice. And he's like, no. I gave him the notice. It's fine. I'm like, listen, it's your word against his. If you show up on April 15th and he says, you never gave me that notice, and you have no way to prove to the court that you gave him that notice, then he gets a whole new 90 days. And he's like, no, you've got it. I'm not interested. I'm like, listen, I'll do it for you. All I need to do, just give me the piece of paper and the guy's phone number. I personally will create the paper trail for you. He's like, no, absolutely not. He's like, if I get there on the 15th and he's still there, he's like, I'm showing up with a bin, I'm changing the locks, and I'm kicking him out. I'm like, then you will go to jail. I'm like, the police will be called and you will go to jail. And his response was, I've been to jail before. You get 3-star meals and you get to work out. I'll come out better than I went in. I'm like, okay.
That is a good one.
So check back with me in April and we'll see what happens on the 15th.
Good one. Oh my God. So people, this seller is wrong on so many levels. So on the paper trail, when you go in Alberta to the Residential Tenancies Dispute Board, the RTDRS, they're very big on paper. They don't want to hear he said, she said, and finger pointing. They want to see the paper. And if you don't have the paper, out you go. Really.
Yep.
So as Dean said, that would have given the guy another 90 days. Well, 3 months, actually. Another 3 months grace before he could properly serve him and get him out. If he's still there on April 15th, change the locks and, put his stuff in a bin. You can't do that either, as Dean said. Boy, oh boy. And, if he told the guy he was going to do it and the guy, did anything with the court system, the seller would have gotten a warning saying, if you do that, you're going to face big trouble, big fines, and maybe go to jail if he ignored all of the court things. Oh my God.
Yeah. But his comment was, it takes the police 20 minutes to show up. It'll be the worst 20 minutes of that guy's life. I'm like, don't tell me that.
I didn't hear that. What, so did you meet him or are you doing this on the phone with him?
No, I've met him. I met him at the property yesterday. So we were just.
Was he the kind of guy who looked like he could just come and tear the front door off and then beat the snot out of the tenant? Because that's what he sounded like he was going to do.
He seems like a guy that wants to be that guy. I don't know how far he would get. He's older
guy,
but maybe he's still that spry. I don't know.
Yeah, spry. And if he's been to jail and doesn't mind, maybe he is. Oh my God. Yeah. Well, yeah. Check back in April. That's a really good one. I don't think I've ever had anybody be as blatantly wrong and assertive on so many levels as that guy is.
Confidently incorrect.
Confidently incorrect, Donna says.
Confidently incorrect. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's a good one.
Yep.
Okay.
So I said, I just told him, I said my piece. You know where I stand. I've advised you. The rest is up to you, sir. We all make our own decisions in life.
See you later. All right. Next up. So we've talked occasionally here on in our creative real estate education group about this thing called title insurance, and why title insurance might be good, why title insurance and real property reports are not substitutes for each other, but are complementary to each other. And we talked about what title insurance does for you as an owner. And one of the things it protects against is mortgage fraud, title fraud. And so the way that works is sophisticated fraudsters figure out when a property is sometimes vacant, and when it's vacant, whether or not the seller has a clear title property or a property with lots and lots of equity in it. And then they put together people who play the part of the owners. They get the best ID ever. They put it in the hands of the actors who are playing the parts of the owners, and they do a couple things. They pretend to be the owners so that they can go to the bank and say, well, I've got a clear title property, and it's, say, in Toronto, because there's lots going on in Toronto. It's worth $1 million, because all properties are worth at least $1 million in Toronto. Well, they were. I'm using that as a round number. I realize prices have dropped, but that would not be an unusual price for a house or value for a house in Toronto, $1 million. And they're going, we have some cash, or we need some cash to do some investing. We're going to buy some Royal Bank stock and TD things. And so we'd like $500,000. So any bank in the country will fall all over themselves to lend somebody $500,000 secured against a $1 million property. That's a pretty darn quick mortgage approval in any place in the country. So they make application for a mortgage. Their ID supports who they are. They can get all the employment letters and anything else that a lender needs, because they're fraudsters and they know how to do this. And by and by, they collect $500,000 from the bank, and away they go, never to be seen again. The slightly more sophisticated version of this is that they don't pretend to be the owners until they transfer the property to themselves. So they pretend to be, they work up their false ID and their documentation, they get the property transferred to themselves, and then they mortgage it. Bottom line in the end is that the owner of the property either loses the property because it gets sold to somebody else, or he discovers he's got a mortgage he didn't put on his property. And the bank is saying, when are you going to start making payments here? So that type of mortgage fraud or title fraud used to show up very infrequently. I think up till 2020, there was one instance maybe per year, and some years not any. But last year in 2022, in Toronto alone, if I'm remembering properly, there were 30 cases of title/mortgage fraud, 30 cases. And so if you don't have a policy of title insurance, which insures against fraud, then you are SOL, as they say. You are in big, big trouble. In Alberta, we have something called the Assurance Fund, which is a fund run by the Land Titles Office, and it funds itself from taking a piece of every registration that goes through Land Titles. If you want to register a transfer or a mortgage, Land Titles charges you $50 plus a certain amount of dollars per $1,000 worth of value. And every time a property gets registered, they take a little chunk of it and they put it in the assurance fund and that pays for negligent or fraudulent mishaps. But it's a fund of last resort, and you have to prove that you have taken every other action possible before you can make a claim against the fund. But in one of these awful circumstances, if you came back from your 6-month cruise and discovered someone else living in your house, if you have a policy of title insurance, they will pay you for what you have lost. Pay you for what you've lost. And I don't think there's any limit on it. I mean, if you have a house worth 300 or 500 or $1 million, you pay bigger premiums as you work your way up getting those title insurance policies. But title insurance will cover you against that kind of fraud. And I think if we now know that there was 30 cases in Toronto in 2022, where previously there were basically one a year, maybe, in that area, you should seriously consider getting title insurance anytime you buy a property. And you might say, I don't have any equity in my property. I'm an investor. Really, I'm buying them for as little as I possibly can. But you by and by, you will have equity. As we know, some investors' plan is to, they want to buy 5 or 6 properties, pay them off as quick as they can. And between that and their government pension, they're sitting pretty in terms of retiring if they have 5 or 6 paid off properties. When you've got those 5 or 6 paid off properties, then you're exposed. So here's the good thing about title insurance. And that is that it lasts for as long as you own the property based on a one-time payment. So when you buy the home, you buy your title insurance policy. And if you own that property for 30 years, the policy is good for 30 years, and you make your one-time payment, which for a house under $500,000 in Alberta is less than $250. That's good value. That's good value. So I think the lesson learned here is we have been at Field Law, where I work, saying to our buyer clients, you know what, unless you tell us different or mightily object, we are buying you a policy of title insurance. For $250, it's cheap insurance. And in the face of rising title and mortgage fraud, I think everybody better have it. So,
and one caveat to that as well, Barry. I was reading on some of those cases out in Toronto. The title insurance will cover you if, for example, your house was essentially stolen, but it will only cover for what it was sold for. So if the fraudster sold a $1 million property as a fire sale for, say, $750, they'll only cover the $750 that it's sold for. The alternative, though, is that they can also pay the expenses to get it back. So you have two options with title insurance, but I 100% agree with you. Excellent investment for such a small amount. And the other thing I would recommend is if you do have rentals, make sure that your land titles and any kind of notifications from land titles is not going to the rental. It's going to you somewhere else, because that's a very easy way for your tenants potentially to steal your property, because they would control where that land title is going.
Where that land title goes. You got to keep your address up to date. If you're doing lots of investing, a post office box is a good idea. So that you don't have to worry about changing addresses.
Or your lawyer.
Yeah. So Dean, on the issue of they'll only pay up to the value of, one other thing there is that title insurance works differently in different jurisdictions. So in some places they will try and get your property back for you. In places that have a Torrens land system like Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, one of the things about this thing called the Torrens system of land titles registration is certainty of title. So if the buyer of the house from the fraudster was an innocent buyer and had no clue, he gets to keep his title. So in some jurisdictions, you cannot get your title back, and that would be Alberta. In some jurisdictions, you can. So there's lots of wrinkles and crinkles to the title insurance and fraud issue. So bottom line is you should probably buy a policy of title insurance when you purchase a home. And the other thing is you can buy it post-closing. So if I've scared the heck out of you and you're going, I closed on a property 3 years ago and I got lots of equity, you can buy a title insurance policy now. You don't have to buy it when you purchase the home. So now Sean said, one of my clients has filed a caveat. So in Alberta, you file notices against title. If you have an interest in the property, you file this thing called the caveat. Other provinces use a different form of doing that, different form of notice. One of my clients has filed a caveat, $1 value on mom's house and grandma's house, both free and clear. So he gets notice of a pending transfer or registration.
That's a good idea.
So that's interesting. We have something in Alberta now called the pending registration queue, which is pretty new here in Alberta. And I know that when the caveat actually does get registered, that notice of that caveat goes to the notice of anything getting registered against the property goes to the address as designated by the owner. So just thinking about this. Well, the caveat, so he gets notice of a pending transfer. I don't know, Sean, if the notice goes to the caveator when it goes into the pending registration queue. And in Alberta, it's not going to come out for 3.5 or 4 months because that's how long it takes to register. Does it come out? Does it go to the owner once registration occurs, which takes 3.5 or 4 months? Or does it go to the owner the minute it gets into the pending registration queue? That would give them some time to maybe thwart things.
But technically, at closing, the lawyer should be reaching out to the caveator, right? And saying, hey, there's a caveat. I need to give clean title to the new owner. So would not the lawyer then reach out and say, what is this caveat and how do I get it off this title?
That's right. Standard practice is when any deal is closing, I mean, you get a title search as part of starting your work on a file. So if it was showing up then, you could do something. But on the day of closing, you have to check the pending registration queue. And so if there's anything there that you are not expecting, then you would try and look at it and try and get hold of the person who filed the caveat and ask them what it's all about. It's one of the deficiencies of the queue is it doesn't say what the details of the caveat are, and land titles won't give it to you. You have to find out who the lawyer is and call them up and say, what's the caveat? So I'm going to finish this one off because we got a few more to do. Just saying, be serious about considering buying a title insurance policy. Not perfect, but better, way better than the alternative.
And Barry, I only have about 5 more minutes here. I got to run my son to volleyball. So
sure.
I just want to give you a heads up. Okay.
And well, can you fill 5 minutes with another story or just, pick?
Oh, what do I have? I feel like you've already heard my other recent stories. I still have my AFS that I don't know if they're going to give me vacant possession on the 1st. So that's going to be fun.
That would be a fun one.
It's going to be interesting.
Let's talk about that one. If you can tell us about it, and if you have time to tell us, that's fine. Maybe it's more than 5 minutes.
Yeah. So the background is I had some people that reached out to me, and they were full-blown foreclosure process, and they had their house listed by the courts on the MLS, and I was trying to work with them, kind of give them some options. And it's a tough situation, obviously, for what they were going through as not only as a couple, but they have some kids. And so I kind of gave them some options. I told them that I could stop the foreclosure and They waited until the night before the court date when the court was about to award the sale to an offer they had. And and so it was 6:10 at night. I'm in a restaurant with my wife and I get a text, "Hey Dean, can you still help us?" I can try. I mean, it's up to the judge now.
Yeah.
So I went and sat in the courtroom with them for 3 hours the next morning, and we told them that we could make up their arrears, which is about $60,000 because they had some equity. And so we went and signed an agreement, just a standard area contract with a AFS schedule on the back end of it. And that's been signed. That's been sent to my lawyer. My lawyer has sent it over to the lawyer they chose, and nobody has heard from them.
Still, they're ghosting everybody.
Yeah, ghosting their lawyer, ghosting my calls. I sent them a couple of texts yesterday, and they have equity. This is the strange thing. "Oh, Mr. Taniguchi, how the heck are you, sir? This is the guy that taught me how to do the foreclosure process." Yes, Jedi Master.
I have a volume problem. I can't. Can you hear me? Okay. I don't know why I'm
It's fine.
doing this on my mobile, and for whatever reason, you guys are talking at a very low volume, and I can't figure out. And yeah, Dean, it's not an Apple. I'm not sure why I'm not getting volume.
Well, to me, I can hear you perfectly, Neil. You
Good.
sound good. So
Okay.
Yeah.
well, Dean, I guess it sounds like, my bet is you're going to hear on March 31st. If April 1's the deadline, you're going to hear the night of March 31st. Dean, sorry, man. Gee, I know that.
Probably. That's what I'm half expecting. So it is what it is. It'll work out. I'm not losing sleep on it or anything. So.
No, you can't, because for creative real estate, there's always a curveball in there that you've never seen before, and doesn't matter how many deals you've done. There's an infinite number of curveballs that deals can throw to you, and that's just another one. So,
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks for that one. You pop off when you have to. Appreciate you coming in.
Well, I'll take this moment to pop off now. I'll leave you with Neil. Good to see you, Neil. Thanks again, Barry. We'll talk to you guys later.
See ya. Bye. Neil, thanks for showing up. Good man.
Hey, you bet.
Now, where are you showing up from? Where are you?
Greetings from Puerto Escondido in the state of Oaxaca, Mexico. Finally.
Puerto Escondido. You finally got down there. And so yeah. We've been to Mexico a couple times in the last
week. We're late getting here this year. But
what's the weather like?
The weather's good. Yeah. It's, it was 31 today. And it's going to be 31 tomorrow. Although, again, I think in 10 years here, I don't know if you can see it back there or not, but yeah, we have rarely seen rain, and it looks like rain clouds tonight. So if we get a torrential downpour tonight, that could be one of the rare ones. And
in dry places like that, good rain is always important. So I'm glad you got down there finally. I know you like to do that every year for a month or 2 or 3, whatever you can manage. So that's wonderful.
A little recharge.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Check emails, make phone calls, and then back at it. So, yeah.
And do all that stuff. Well, we're doing Tales from the Trenches today. And we've done a couple so far, and we're going to move on to another one. So we were just talking about title insurance and fraud. And so next tale is... another wholesaling story. And so in this scenario, my client, or the story, is about the wholesaler. So he's found a property undervalued, and after deliberation, he gets it under contract. And there's a nice spread in there. It's probably worth about $40,000 to $50,000 more than what the seller is ready to let it go for. He goes to his buyer's list, and he finds a buyer who's ready to pay him a $15,000 assignment fee, realizing that he'll pick up $35,000 in equity. So it's 50 under market, $15,000 assignment fee means 50,000 minus 15,000 equals the ultimate buyer getting a property that's $35,000 under value, which he was going to be very happy with. So as we teach in our wholesaling course, we say to wholesalers, great, your job is to get the property under contract and do whatever diligence you need to do, find a buyer, explain and agree on what diligence you have done, and make sure that your buyer understands what's going on. And then you write up your assignment contract. And part of writing up the assignment contract is you write up the assignment contract, you staple it to the purchase contract, and you say to your assignee, that's the person buying the contract from you, pay me the money. And in this case, that would be $15,000. The ultimate buyer flimmed and flammed, and he goes, well, this is my first time. I'm really nervous about this. What if the seller won't close? What if this happens? What if that happens? And so our wholesaler, assignor, said, okay, fine. You can pay me my $15,000 when you actually close the deal. So they went ahead on that basis. The closing day came. The wholesaler's lawyer got in touch with the ultimate buyer's lawyer. And guess what? The ultimate buyer had not properly disclosed his financial details to his lender. And the lender discovered that there had been some chicanery going on. Too bad Wayne's not on. Chicanery, that would be a good word for him. And so they yanked the mortgage. And this is a picture of your fridge. This is my microwave.
We can compare utility.
Look at that.
How old do you think that microwave
look at that. Wow, I like that. So the ultimate buyer's lender yanked the financing because the ultimate buyer had lied to the lender. So guess what? The ultimate buyer can't close. And my wholesaler assignor did not collect his $15,000 assignment fee. Now, luckily, they'd amended the contract to show the ultimate buyer as the purchaser under the contract. They'd at least done that part right. But he tried to go back to the owner to say, my ultimate buyer, and you knew I was going to do this. He at least properly disclosed that too. So it wasn't a big surprise. But the seller said, get out of here. I don't want to talk to you again. I'm just going to list this property with a realtor who, by the way, says he can get me a lot more money. So that deal collapsed. So, what lesson do we learn from this tale from the trench? And that is that if you are the wholesaler assignor, once you have a firm contract, you want to get your money right now. You want to get your $15,000 assignment fee right now. Why are you waiting until the buyer closes? Especially when, in this case, he didn't close. So, what can you say about that? Our wholesaler was just our assigner was just kind of getting started in the wholesaling business. Didn't have the confidence to say to his buyer, you pay me now or there is no deal. And since the buyer was picking up a pretty good property for a pretty good discount, there's a good chance he would have said, fine, I'll pay. But you can take those chances and not get paid and have something like that happen. If you give something time, stuff can happen. So, isn't that true? Yeah.
I have a feeling that perhaps the materials that might get handed out next month at a wholesaling course might have a contract that is a little more airtight as far as being able to get paid when you wholesale.
Interesting.
And saying, if I don't get paid, we're not signing this, right?
So are you having a wholesaling course down there in Puerto Escondido?
Well, you haven't heard it's been relocated.
Oh,
You're flying here now.
excellent. Excellent. I was going to be very happy to do that course. Even
And
I
all
would
the
love to be
participants,
doing
Barry,
it.
are really happy that you're footing the bill for them to fly here.
Yeah, so we're March 18th in Calgary on that one, and looking forward to doing it. Now, so this is Tales from the Trenches. Do you have a tale that you could tell people that might be interesting and a lesson to be learned?
Producer
Anything at
Donna
all?
apparently is weighing in on this change of venue. Apparently, the cancellation fees in Calgary might be a little high.
Oh,
Yes.
ooh.
I have a version of a wholesale deal that did go sideways that we ended up being the benefactor on that.
Oh,
Many of your people watching know a very shy lady by the name of Shelley Visser.
who would know her? She's so shy.
So Shy Shelley had found a deal, put it under contract, and at that point it was a rental flip house. And for those of you in Calgary, it was in good old Acadia, and bought it far enough back on MLS to boot.
Wow.
That when she said, timing's not right for me to go ahead and do a flip, she wholesaled it. And she had been paid her assignment fee. She did it right. She got the funds. She got everything signed over. She blah, blah, blah. And we missed it because we didn't have our contractor in place at the time. And the folks phoned her back about a week later and said, we can't get our financing. We can't close. What do we do? And so she ended up, she was clear. She had her money, and it would have been their problem to close and be on the hook for not closing and be liable and all that stuff and lose the initial deposit because they had paid her back her deposit plus her assignment fee. She also understood that her name as the wholesaler was involved. So she called me and she said, were you still considering? I said, yeah, our contract, because I had phoned her and said, hey, we're ready. Our contract. She said, sorry, it's gone. I'm like, thanks a lot, friend. But, I understood that time is of the essence when you're trying to wholesale.
Sure.
First one to the till. Intentions don't do anything for anyone in any real estate transaction. Intention means nothing. Right? First to the till wins, and we were good with it. Short version is we agreed to take on that contract, and they assigned the assignment to us.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we paid them back every dime of their assignment fee because I think it was 10 from memory. And again, in that, quite frankly, of create win-win, that I know that is a component of the course, is having participated enough in them that it's part of the McGuire method that you espouse win-win for everyone, that we paid them back every dime of the assignment fee. It would have been very easy to say, there's a $10,000 lesson for you folks.
Yes.
We'll take it over, but you lost your fee. But we paid it back to them, and it ended up being our first flip. And this, again, to connect it all back, was we had never done flipping. We've been real estate investors for over 20 years now, but that was our first flip in about 18 or 19. Mm-hmm. And again, having come to your course and listened to some of the people that's all they do, 2 and 3 flips on the go at all the time, we went, I wonder if we can do that. And short version is we currently have 4 flip houses on the go and 3 flip townhouses. And again, I don't know how to moderate, but money is in abundance to fund those.
Poor baby.
Yeah.
Nothing but money to do nothing but deals.
It's not our money. It's other people's money, right? Hard money lending. I haven't seen the curriculum for March 18th, but I'm going to suggest that hard money lending is probably a topic of conversation. And again, I apologize if you covered that earlier.
No, we haven't covered that earlier, and it will be one of the topics, because if you need plan B and C, if plan A isn't working out, and often your hard money lender is, it can be your plan B or C, or it can be your plan A. There's lots of room for hard money lenders in what we do.
Yeah. And producer Donna, I still owe you a call about that. So
hear that? Producer Donna's, she's watching us. So folks, as you listen to Neil's story here, we always play for win-win. They didn't have to, he and Linda wouldn't have to have paid back the assignee who could not close the deal. They could have lost their 10, and they could have been exposed to to a lawsuit from the seller for not closing. It's not just deposits that go sideways. The seller would go, okay, well, you couldn't close. Guess what? We're going to remarket this logically with another realtor. We're going to sell. And, if you were going to pay us $400 and we only get $360, then you're on the hook for that $40,000 plus our legal fees, plus all the other reasonable expenses that would flow from you not closing. So that was great that you kind of played for win-win. Played for win-win.
Got our feet wet, and we haven't looked back, so to speak, since then. Those of you who follow the show a long time know that we lost money on our third flip. We weren't hiding it from anyone. We paid all our investors back. Yeah. But we were the trifecta, as I call it, of how not to flip: over budget, too long, and launched it into this minor thing called a COVID pandemic in 2020 of March. Into a vacuum of no showings for 90 days.
Oh, man.
So again, black swan event. It is what it is.
That is definitely the trifecta. Another thing in here, folks, that probably some of you have picked up is that Shelley Visser got the property under contract and talked to Neil about whether he'd be interested. Needed his contractor to be available, wasn't available. Shelley carried on and sold it to somebody else, but came back to Neil when her assignee couldn't close. So keeping the lines of communication is really important. Keeping those lines open and having people to talk to. On the wholesaling side of things, people are in love with the concept of finding an undervalued property and then, getting it under contract and selling it for an assignment fee. I mean, that's what they see. And what they don't see is, especially when they're starting out, the importance of having someone to say, hey, I've got a great property under contract, undervalued. Do you want to buy? You got to have some people to go to. So the networking that you will learn how to do, how to create a buyer's list, and how to have more than one iron in the fire is very important on the wholesaling side of things. So next.
Let's do a follow-up question on that.
Follow-up question?
Leah had when you were talking hard money.
Is this going to be a new topic included in the Creative Deals course?
What's this mean?
Is it maybe a reference to hard money lending?
Yes.
Well, yes. I mean, it's a topic that we have covered at various events. Last time we were in Toronto, we talked about hard money lending, but we're going to add it into the wholesaling workshop because it is important for that strategy. It's very important for that strategy. So we will add in a segment on hard money lending. Private lending, I guess.
Private lending.
Private money is hard money.
George had a comment about nice problem to have for us, and we've been fortunate over the years to be able to fund our hard money lending from our initial first level circle of contacts, basically former co-workers and friends. Mm-hmm. But again, as we, lack of moderation, scaled up and bought more, we now moved to that next lending where we were taking on some new people, because a lot of times when you're able to, one of the things about hard money lending, and it's probably a little teaser for the course, folks, is when you get the first version from people, if they say, we probably could put 50,000 or 100,000 towards that project. Quite frankly, typically the people who are offering that have more, but they want to see what your results are. Can you produce for them like you say you're going, or do you have a track record? And when it's your first one, you don't have a track record. You can certainly leverage, I belong to a group of investors led by a well-respected lawyer in Edmonton and his even more respected producer wife.
I was waiting for that.
I'm just playing for jam right now, quite frankly, you know that. And they often will have more than they tell you initially is where I was going with that. But again, we've gotten past that first level now where people don't want their money back, is what I was going to say. When you go to say, hey, we're done, we're going to pay you out, they're like, no. Like, especially again, this has been a great year to take on new investors, folks, because if you want to start a conversation in the next week at lunch, at the water cooler, at supper, at the gym with someone going, how about that stock market? It doesn't take long to hear that response from people. And oh my God, the gut-wrenching roller coaster is a quote that I heard from Greg Habstritt years ago. He doesn't even teach RSP lending anymore. And it has stuck with me, the gut-wrenching roller coaster that the stock market represents.
Yeah.
And we just produce, I don't think I'm allowed to say the word solid and safe. We have certainly shown to our repeat investors, though, what we're capable of. Our track record now that we've established has put, which also then when we do have an opportunity allows us to take new people on, and we can say, hey, by the way, call this person. So George, when I say money is abundance, I've had a lot of my friends who've come back to me in the real estate world later and they go, man, once you have that mindset that there's a ton of money out there that people do not know what to do with.
Yeah.
They recognize that at a 3 or 4% GIC, it's way more than 0.6 they were getting before, and it's still not keeping up to inflation.
Yeah.
So
no, it's absolutely true. Neil, you've just told your story, and we've heard your story from any number of other investors, both on the buy and hold side, on the creative side. It's performance and trust, and all you have to do is one deal. You do one damn deal, as we like to say. You do one damn deal where you did exactly what you said you were going to do, and then if you go back to the person that you worked with, the lender you worked with, and tell them you have another deal, they ask way fewer questions. They're way more willing to say, all right, I've done a deal with Neil and Linda. They were on time, on budget. We got paid exactly the way we said, and they now have another deal they've explained. They sign up without really giving you any kind of going over it at all. I mean, they trust you now. Isn't that right?
You've built a level of trust. And again, that old expression that comes into play, we lend out of my RSP, and the expression is you bet on the jockey, not on the horse.
Mm-hmm.
So the property and the pro forma and the budget have less to do with it than who you are and your character. And again, if it's your first time getting one, I know that we were all there, those of us who borrow money, it was hard to get our first one done. And that's where we talk about being able to leverage this group as an understanding of what's there.
And the principle really applies not to just the circumstance where you need to borrow money, but it applies to all of the creative strategies. If you ever need to work with somebody else, it's a matter of you doing what you say you're going to do, showing people that that's exactly what happened, exactly what you said, and not only will they do deals with you, the second and third and fourth ones being just because you say you've got a deal, they will tell their friends. And once you do that one damn deal, the increase in your Rolodex of people who want to do deals with you, it expands exponentially.
That's right.
Because everybody wants to put their money with a trusted person who will earn them a really good return and just be no questions asked. That's what everybody wants. And, in any room of real estate investors, what do we think, Neil? That 80% of those people would rather write a check to someone they trust than to do the work themselves. And
any one of your courses, we know that there are handshakes that happen where lenders and borrowers get together. And again, one of the benefits of doing live courses versus the Hollywood squares of a Zoom webinar, hey, that was necessary 2 and 3 years ago, but thank you for coming back live, because then the magic happens on stage, folks, but it also happens in the room, at break, at the back of the room.
Yeah.
And there's so many of these, they're cheesy expressions, but they're not cheesy because they're true, right?
They're
Your
true.
net worth is your net work.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that is absolutely true. I listened to Gabby Hillier say that on the weekend, and it is absolutely true. So, on that note, I'm just looking at my Tales from the Trenches,
I
and
forgot to save them.
I've got a couple more. I've got a really good one on someone who did a wholesaling deal on 12 Sweeter that was
Wow.
condos, where you had to write 12 individual contracts. That's a complicated one and an interesting one. And I got another one on when is a certificate of compliance attached to a real property report not a clear certificate? When you get a certificate of compliance, when is it not a certificate of compliance? Seems not to be possible, but it is. So that's a couple we didn't get through today. So Neil, thanks for showing up. Are you heading off to watch the sun go down soon and maybe have a cocktail? And
Sunset happened here just about 5:30 your time.
Okay.
And that's when I went, oh, it's Monday. And I looked at my phone and went, oh, oops. Gone ahead and invite us last minute to come in and join you.
Well, thanks for showing up. Dean popped up there and contributed nicely, and as did you. So thanks for showing up. We'll be looking to see on March 18th whether we're in Puerto Escondido or in Calgary. And that, folks, is it for tonight. So we'll say goodnight. Everybody carry on, and we will see you next Monday. Good night, everybody.
Hasta luego.